Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
42 days between pay-per-views? Is that accurate? Don't tell my boss. I'm jonesing to crack a mic, and not this one. Hey, Jason Anik, thanks for setting up the studio. You can stop filming at any time. Good Monday to you. Ken Flo, how's your stick? It's January 13th, 2025. It is episode 531 of the Anik and Florian podcast, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Ken Flo, the crown is always yours, my man. How's your Monday going, kid? How we doing?
I'm well. It's a little cold where I'm at, but so getting a little bit of that northeast weather that we used to get in Boston, but I'm good, kid. I'm ready to rock.
So I just told my business manager, Jason Anik, to turn the fan off because it has been very cold here in South Florida. One day, Ken Flo woke up 48 degrees here in South Florida down here.
That's cold for
on
you
the
guys.
tip. So yeah, pretty icy down here. And we did just want to say off the top of the show, Kenny Florian lived in Los Angeles for a long time. He met his wife out there, if I'm not mistaken. You opened a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school out there. This show was launched live in LA 10 years ago in 2015. I used to spend a lot of time out there. And my goodness, Kenny, since we were last on the air, just so much sadness and devastation and trauma, courtesy of those Los Angeles wildfires and just the worst kind of perfect storm of wind and fire, and Pacific Palisades is flattened. And my gosh, man, just total devastation. And our hearts go out to all of those people dealing with this crazy, crazy circumstance that they've lost everything that they have known and everything that makes them feel safe.
Yeah, absolutely brutal, man. My daughter was born there. I still have a lot of friends there, of course, and have a few friends that have lost everything. My wife as well. And it's horrible, man. You know, you think about all the things that you have, from the memories to the home that you build to just your whole life is there, and to see it now destroyed. One of the most beautiful parts in the United States, just a beautiful area, very wealthy area, of course. That doesn't make it any better or worse. But to see the devastation that they've dealt with is really, really tragic, man.
So living down here in Florida, oftentimes I have found myself as a resident boarding up my house and getting ready to hunker down for these hurricanes. And you just never quite prepare for total disaster. And I just can't even imagine what these people are dealing with. And even Spencer Pratt, who some of you may follow, who is an avid mixed martial arts fan and I believe Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner who lost everything, he sort of says, I don't consider myself to be like a possession type guy, right? But the hummingbirds that used to come and visit him every day, and God willing, they'll return and find him again right there, gone. And all these animals have lost their homes. And I think you find yourself thinking, yeah, I'm not a possession guy, but like losing everything makes you sort of feel like you do sort of crave something that sort of made you feel safe and sound. So my goodness, man, to all of those people, I hope to be able to greet and hug some of you as we descend upon LA for UFC 311. I believe my boss, Ari Emanuel, lost his house, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of people just completely devastated. And we've been thinking about you 24/7. Lot to get to on the program today, though. Ray Longo going to join us in his customary slot. That's coming up 11:30 a.m. Eastern, about 10 minutes from now. And thanks to everybody joining us live here today on the DraftKings YouTube channel. Sportsnet MMA reporter Aaron Bronsteter is going to join us. And then later this week, probably 48 hours from now, Ken Flo, Petrie, their predictions and best bets for UFC 311. And quickly on that note, and I know you guys want to hear Kenny Florian's voice, but some housekeeping off the top of the show today. So as many of our avid viewers and listeners know, we are allowing you guys once again, for the first time in several years, the chance to get on the air. Several years ago, we had a bank of 250 listeners who we would have on the air to make picks against Kenny Florian. What we are going to do this year, we have a Google form that will be populated on the Anik and Florian podcast social media channels. We need your name, your email address, your social media handle, and your hometown, ideally, to book you on the show and account for time zones. And we will draw from that group you will get a chance to go head-to-head against Kenny Florian and Brian Petrie on our segment called Place Your Bets. And I would just say, as an aside, a lot of handicappers, Yanni the Greek, Ian Parker, Brian Petrie, got their start on this show. They have gone on to become gainfully employed in this space. So now is your chance in 2025. Find that Google form and get in the game. All right. Headlines is brought to you by Cuervo. Now's a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. Absolutely love that stinger. A lot to get to, Ken Flo, in this segment. We will talk to Ray Longo about Khabib Nurmagomedov and being removed from that Frontier Airlines plane or taking himself off the plane. I got to think you and me, Ken Flo, got to boycott that airline. More on that later, but I would like to begin with Mackenzie Dern, whom you and Brian Petrie both forecasted to get it done as underdog at the Apex, and get it done she does with 4 seconds to go, Ken Flo. In round 3, she finds the arm bar, and as you appropriately put it last week, on the ground, she has no equal in this division or really in the women's game, and Amanda Hebos paid the price. Mackenzie Dern coming to a top 5, I would think, near you shortly here.
Yeah, that's right. And Hebos is very good. Obviously a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well, and judo. But again, when you go back to October 2019 when they first fought, I just thought that Mackenzie Dern had made way more gains when it comes to the improvement of her game than Hebos had. And Hebos was still very effective in stopping some of those takedowns. She was very good with some of those throws, but still all it did was allow Dern to invite her into her game, right? And when she's on the ground, man, she is going to be very, very difficult to stop. And that's ultimately where she won this fight. Her ability to get to that clinch is much improved. Her ability to be effective with a lot of those strikes, I think, were greatly improved. And then once on the ground, she really took over, or at the very least nullified Hebos from doing anything to her. But just a beautiful setup for that sweep, that reversal into mount, and then ultimately with that arm bar, that's as clean as it gets, and that's one of Mackenzie Dern's specialties. So tough to stop her there.
So in the waning seconds of the round, as you are watching this, presumably live, as the credentialed BJJ player that you are you thinking, man, it doesn't take much, just one tick, and Amanda Hebos is going to have no choice but to tap? I think even somebody like me who's watched thousands of fights, I was surprised that, we didn't get to a 4th round. It just shows just the danger factor, I guess, of Mackenzie Dern.
100%. And there's a lot of people that are good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? And there's a difference between a black belt and someone who is truly elite. When someone is truly elite, right? Jon Anik, you put that mic in front of Jon Anik, he's going to kill it. He's going to crush it. Other guys that are not as experienced aren't going to be able to do it to that level. Mackenzie Dern in the mount. She has your arm. It's over, dude. It's over. That's what the elite do. You give them that opportunity, they're going to take advantage, and they will finish.
So from a coaching perspective, Amanda Hebos is a fighter that I consider to be very well coached. I don't know that she leads the division in fight IQ per se, but sometimes I'm thinking, man, I know it's cool, to, maybe come close to mounting Mackenzie Dern or hanging out in her guard, but it's aren't you just trying to kickbox at all costs? I just feel like in terms of path of least resistance and risk mitigation, if you are any strawweight in the world, Zhang Wei Li included, why you fucking around down there?
Yeah. Well, it's a great point. I would say that a couple of the situations where Mackenzie was clinched up with her kind of almost only way out of there was to kind of hit a throw. Otherwise, she would have been taken down. Now, however, that's one thing, right? Okay, you had to hit that throw in order to stop the takedown. But what about getting your posture, keeping your head above their head, and getting the heck out of there? Like you said, if there's any chance or if there's any area that someone is going to be better than you in, and you feel that you have a higher percentage to beat them, let's say on the feet, why wouldn't you just keep it on the feet for as long as possible, right? So, yeah, I think there was a little bit of mistakes played there from Hebos. She was playing with fire there, being on the ground with Dern for all of that time, and she gave Dern the opportunity to win, and that really was the difference. I think it was just some, decision-making that really got the best of her.
And not to get too deep on you, but it really is so applicable in life. I've been up in front of classrooms teaching broadcasting, and I talk a lot about directing your life towards things that you are good at. Now, sometimes human beings find themselves in a position where, yeah, I'm really good at this, but I fucking hate doing it. Now, I'm not advising you necessarily to do that, but, part of what I have tried to do as a sports writer at one point in time, an eventual radio host, and now doing TV. I never wanted to do television, just trying to, all right, I think I'm okay at this, pretty good at this. Maybe I try to direct my life in that capacity. And Mackenzie Dern, I think, still a specialist in some respects. I still think somewhat underappreciated. I love my man, Jason Perillo, learning on the job, and she's okay sort of being that fighter that's learning on the job. You just got to be real careful with these specialists messing around where they are at their best. So real quickly, Ken Flo, as far as Mackenzie Dern is concerned, she's not in any rush, speaking of learning on the job, for a championship opportunity, and there's still things to be figured out here in short order at the top of this division. But what do you think? What do you think about her as the challenges now get stiffer? She's built a wealth of experience. What do you think? I mean, do you think she can break through and, get to a title eliminator, which she might be in already, and potentially be live against someone like Zhang Weili or Tatiana Suarez, or what?
There is a fight, perhaps a few fights, John, where I was a little concerned and asking myself, is this for her? Is she developing at the rate that she should? As of right now, I am really positive on what she's doing right now. I think that she has changed a lot as a fighter. She's been through a lot as a fighter and as a human being. And I think that she's getting to that point where her comfort level inside the octagon is allowing her to execute these moves that we saw on Saturday night. So I'm seeing the improvement. I'm seeing that work ethic. She's clearly coming in to each and every fight now, the last several fights perhaps, in shape and ready. Yeah. And that's a great sign. So I see her, facing tougher and tougher challenges now. Chibas is not an easy out for anybody out there. I think that was a great win for Mackenzie, a great way to build her confidence, continue that momentum, and work her way to a potential title shot in the future. When you have someone who is as good as Dern in that one modality, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, on the ground, she's going to be a threat to anybody. Again, like you said, you can't play around on the ground with her for too long. And just that alone, being world-class, makes her a threat against anybody, no matter what.
It's interesting when it comes to how certain contenders approach their careers. Macy Barber, she may believe right now that she's the best flyweight in the world. And you can be sure when she wins fights, she's asking for the biggest fights possible. Hell-bent on becoming a world champion, not now, but right now. It seems as though for Mackenzie Dern, she's making a lot of money, to be sure, but wants to get to be as good as possible before maybe challenging for the world championship. Promotionally, though, right? And I don't know, Cody, if you have the Vina Kakara Janji Doba audio file that we have played so many times here on the Anik and Florian podcast in our pronunciation of the week. But if you're the UFC and Zhang Weili is able to get through Tatiana Suarez, now that is a big if. But if you're Vina Janji Doba, in theory, if you're Mackenzie Dern, you're looking for a clean result there, the champion holding serve. If you're the UFC, you calling Vina Janji Doba, or are you calling Mackenzie Dern as the next contender? Now, I don't have the rankings in front of me, but Mackenzie Dern, there's a lot to like there, face on the poster, marketability, everything else, the style, right? The ability to snatch an arm. So, the rankings are right there, Code Blue. Yeah, you got Tatiana Suarez as the number one contender, Yan Xiaonan, who already challenged, Vina Kakara Janji Doba. You got Andrade and Lemos. Yeah, Mackenzie Dern might get a title fight whether she fucking likes it or not.
Yeah, she's knocking on that door. Again, I would like to see her get another fight or two to get that, get that more experience, and to start really trying to work on those takedowns and her striking that she's been developing if she's trying to win that title, on her first try. So again, she's getting there. She's showing improvement, maybe one or two away, but she's knocking on that door for sure.
I'm looking at Mackenzie Dern's Wikipedia page right now, or at least I'm trying to pull it up. We'll go to Tapology here, my favorite website on the internet, incidentally, tapology.com. Has she fought Vina Kakara Janji Doba before? She has. She beat her by unanimous decision. I thought they had fought December 12th, 2020. All right. That's very interesting. So,
and
yeah, we'll see
Doba's
what happens.
Janji Doba's a fighter that really has improved a lot since then as well, right? I mean,
yes, no doubt about it. And Janji Doba, I think right now in a straight meritocracy after Tatiana Suarez would be the rightful number one contender. Always the rightful number one contender, if not champion, the star of the program. Let us get to the Ray Longo Minute.
Now time for the Ray Longo Minute.
I want you to punch a hole in his fucking chest. That's what I want.
The Ray Longo Minute. Starring Ray Longo. The Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Hey!
Hey, guys.
Hey, how you feeling?
Hi, Ray.
Hey, good, man. I had a rough week.
Yeah, you feeling better though?
I feel like $1 million, man.
There we go.
You look like about 900,000. Why was your week so rough?
I caught everybody at the gym is sick. That Nona virus is going around. That flu's going around.
Oh, man.
No, it's
I'm
bad.
sorry to hear that.
It's bad. I hardly had anything compared to what other people had.
Jeez.
Man, I feel like I've been living under a rock. Certainly, we know what's going on in Los Angeles and all of that mass destruction and devastation. But I had no idea you were ill. It seems like maybe Kenny was aware. Do you guys have some like private chat that I'm not a part of?
He's just aware that people have been sick this winter. That's all.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, you mentioned it on the podcast last time. You said,
last week. Last week was probably the worst that day.
Yeah.
So I feel way better.
Right.
Didn't
so
stop
I'm either
me, though,
forgetful
John.
or a bad listener now. As well. That is one of my resolutions, to be a better listener. My mother thinks that I don't listen. Ha!
Yeah.
I don't always listen. I don't always fucking listen. All right, Ray, we have so much to get to.
Really? Let's go,
next
man.
29 minutes with you. It is UFC 311 fight week. You are going to, in whatever condition, descend upon Inglewood, California. Merab Dvalishvili in defense of his title against Umar Nurmagomedov. Are you excited?
Woo! Yeah. Oh man, very excited. Wait, why I look like a fucking ghost? I got to get some sun.
All right, maybe we can change the settings on StreamYard.
Man. Yeah, this is horrible, man.
Well, we pay a lot of money for our cameras. Kempo looks like he's been out in the sun.
Oh my god,
you do look a little bit Elmer's Glue-ish today, but that's okay.
Wow, this is rough. Oof.
You know what though? Your voice is one of my favorite sounds in the world. So, truly,
thank you. Well, thank you, John.
A lot of our listenership feels the same. All right, so I'm very excited, as you know, for Merab Dvalishvili and Umar Nurmagomedov. We have spent a lot of time discussing sort of the build-up, the backdrop to this matchup, the timeline on which it is happening. But as this fight is here, open-endedly, I know sometimes you like when I hit you with a hard-hitting question, but I'm just very excited to see two of the best, I think, pound-for-pound fighters in these marquee divisions go toe-to-toe, and you're going to have a front-row seat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, really excited. I've been talking to Merab. He sounds good. Nas sent me some sparring. So, I'm not involved as much as I would like to be. Obviously, I'm actually not involved basically at all, but on that end. But so far, everything looks good. Sounds good. So we're excited.
Doesn't he sound excited, Kenny? Does he sound excited?
Do you have a specific question?
I'm sure Kenny does.
Yeah. Right. So again, I think we talked about this breakdown a little bit, but how do you see this fight going down? Well, what's going to be the key for Merab, and how does he win this fight?
Look, I'll tell you one big key. I think I don't want him to get emotionally too involved, which looks like it was heading in that direction because he's always had a pretty calm head about things, and this guy looks to have gotten him out of position a little bit. But I think that's it. Just keep a calm head and do what you always do. It's going to be up to Umar to stop what to what Merab does. I think that's the key. So I think Merab's cardio is always on point. You've seen what he's done against high-level guys. I said it last week. There's nothing that I'm looking at that leads me to believe he can't do that to Umar. But, you're going to have to make adjustments on the fly when you're in there.
So do you think, again, Merab has used this so many times, do you think that Umar is going to be able to keep up with that pace? Do you think he's ready for something like Merab, for 25 minutes?
Well, look, again, the guy comes from a great team, got great training partners around him. I'm sure they train their asses off. So on that level, I think they believe he could keep up with it. But when you're in there and you're mixing up really getting hit and, the takedowns and the cardio and the pressure, we'll see what happens. Listen, Kenny, that's what makes this fight really interesting. Can he be the first guy to really stymie, Merab's attack? That's it, period. That's really what it comes down to. Merab's definitely fought better strikers. I think the wrestling is going to be a big, big thing for Umar. We know he could wrestle, and that's it. I think Merab goes in there with more experience against higher level guys, but I think this guy comes from a great training camp, and that like again, that could be the difference in the fight too. You never know.
Yeah.
But he's definitely not going in there unprepared. So it's really intriguing, good fight for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
Plus, just the dynamic between those two that always adds.
Oh,
You could feel that tension anytime they're around, and
yeah.
I just hope they, everybody remains calm and they get to do their thing and they fight, and that's it.
Oh, I hope they push each other, and these stare downs are going to be electric.
No,
Friction, tension. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be absolutely amazing.
And you remember what Jan did to him? He gave him the fucking eagle claw right to the throat that time.
Yeah,
Kenny.
yeah.
Pulled out some old kung fu tricks.
He did.
Scary.
So there is no denying that Merab Dvalishvili is an underrated, underappreciated striker, and I think this matchup affords him the opportunity to prove as much.
Yeah.
Umar Nurmagomedov has a ton of amateur MMA experience. He's 18-0 as a pro, and even if his UFC strength of schedule isn't great top to bottom, his win over Corey Sandhagen as a signature win, I think, is as good as any other win. I don't know that you can... Well, no, to me, like Sean O'Malley was criticized for getting a championship opportunity, but to me, if you beat a Petr Yan singularly or a Corey Sandhagen, that's enough for me. No?
Yeah.
You got to beat Sandhagen and Rob Font? I mean,
listen, but there's a difference. I mean, O'Malley dominated his wins. I mean, that fight with Sandhagen, you had to give the rounds to Umar.
Yeah.
That was a close freaking fight, man. I'm going to say every round he stole with 30 seconds to go, and you had to give him the round. But watching that fight, you can't say one guy. I could see both guys coming out of that fight thinking they won. I mean, obviously Umar won, but that was a really close fight. So it wasn't like he went in there and did what Aljo did to Sandhagen. He strangled him in a minute and a half.
Sure.
I mean, this went 5 fucking rounds.
Yeah.
It was a really competitive fight. Anybody that says otherwise doesn't know what they're looking at.
I wasn't even intending to have the conversation. I mean, Sean O'Malley versus Petr Yan was a very competitive fight as well. Yeah. And the UFC did book, and say what you want about it, Umar Nurmagomedov against Song Yadong, and that had fans like me thinking, what are we doing? Umar should fight for the title. Now, that might just speak to my fan appetite, and I know that doesn't dovetail with Merab's opinion nor yours, but I was actually just going to say, like, I think of all these things that Umar has, more experience than you think pre-UFC, the amateur stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can outwill Merab, right? We have so many fighters that have this unbelievable will that a human being like me can't relate to, but I think the one thing for me that sets Merab apart, whether it's a terrible weight cut or him being ill, it doesn't even matter. Like, he just is able to hit this mental place, Kenny and Ray, that a human being like me, I get off the treadmill at that point in time.
Yeah, no, John, I'm agreeing. I agree 100% with you, and I'm with you. I'm getting off the treadmill also. You know what I mean? Like, he just has that extra gear. He's a different cat, but it's really an exciting matchup. Look, I'm glad they made the fight. I wish, Merab got whatever if he wanted to fight, then that's fine. But it's I'm excited. It's going to be a great fight.
I'd imagine the only way you could replicate a fight with Merab Dvalishvili would be to have like fresh opponents coming in every minute and a half. I mean, that's kind of the only way you can prepare for something like that, because he's going to be in your face. He's going to be pressuring you.
Right. But again, Kenny, I agree with you, and that's probably something I would 100% do. But you have to have the same intensity, and that's hard when you get three. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's going to try to implement their own style when you do that. It's hard to get everybody to act like Merab. So you might get it for a little bit, then you're going to get a breather somewhere. This guy's pressure is just nonstop. So it's going to be very hard to replicate that. But again, I would never underestimate those guys. Look, those guys are on a tear. They're on a fucking tear, those guys. So I think this will be the first time they get stopped, not stopped that way, but stopped in their momentum. And I'm hoping Merab's the guy to do it,
Well, for your sake, we are hopeful that is the result. Kenny Florian will give his prediction, I believe, coming up Wednesday here on the DraftKings YouTube channel. It is my prediction that Kenny is going to pick Umar Nurmagomedov, and I only say that because I'm a dick.
I still don't know. I honestly don't even know which way I'm going to go. I watched fight footage of both these guys. I'm even more confused than I was before, because what's so interesting is that, you look at Umar, right, and his kicking game. It's fantastic. It's going to be better than Merab's. But then how is your kicking game if you get a guy like Merab who's constantly backing you up? So that might be nullified there. So there's so many different ways that this fight could play out, which is why it's so fascinating, which is why it's so exciting. And honestly, I'm still confused and not which way. I'm still unsure which way I'm going to go.
I'll tell you, he's got a very, very tricky front kick, Kenny. It's like a changeup. You know what I mean? Like, he's able to get that knee up, pause, and then push it out. And I think he's got a decent check hook coming in. But again, if you look at the Sandhagen fight, I think what other fight was Nate Maness? I mean, nothing.
Right.
I'm not seeing like again, this doesn't even mean anything. I'm just not seeing a world beater. You know what I mean? You're not seeing that Mike Tyson, like, he's killing everybody up to the title. Yeah, he's winning, and and that's what got him there. But again, I like the Sandhagen win, but that was a very close fight. And I think if he would have stopped Sandhagen, it would have been a totally different thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd have a totally different opinion. But that was man, if there's ever a guy that's just in close fights, it's Sandhagen, man. But he's right. He's right where he wants to be too, and he just, that extra 1% seems to be evading him.
Yeah. So Ray Longo will be in Merab's corner. We're very excited for that. And what else can be said about Ray Longo, by the way, who is on a different coast, and his value in that corner and during fight week is such and so high that he will be right there alongside Merab Dvalishvili. The only other thing I had real quick in my notes, Merab's old-fashioned way of cutting weight, right? And it's interesting to hear him talk about this, Kenny, right? Because when you water load, right, there is a chance, and I know a lot of athletes do it, that it can go sideways and maybe the unload doesn't go optimally, right? Whereas if you literally, George St. Pierre style, if you follow that psychopath on Instagram, this dude's doing a dry fast, right? Forget Dana White drinking some water, going 72 hours. George St. Pierre doing a fucking dry fast, right? Merab feels like he lessens the margin for error by just not ingesting anything. Complete psychopath. But sometimes I do think that as he gets older and makes 16-week turnarounds, that it could be a factor. That's all.
I didn't know he did it that way. I mean, that's like the old school wrestling way. And you're right, John. It's interesting how that might affect him at a certain point, as he gets older or after a certain amount of fights. I don't know. It's not affecting his energy on fight night. So shit, I don't know.
I'll tell you, John, I think you were there. It was right after we did the interviews that time. I can't think of the kid's name from the PI, but he gave him Kenny was like a little whipped cream or something. I mean, like a half, and Merab was like, no. He was like, how the hell can that hurt you? There's nothing there. You know what I mean? Like, so he doesn't let anybody come to his weight cuts either, which I
really
found out. Yeah,
he just does it on his own.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, no, because I made that mistake. I was like, what are we doing for Rob's weight cut? And Aljo goes, wait, don't you remember he threw us out of the room last time? I go, wow. I don't remember that. And then Matt calls up. I call Matt. I go, I think I'm going to head over to Merab's weight cut. He goes, he doesn't want us there. Don't you remember when he threw us out of the room? Dude, I don't remember anything at this point. But yeah. And then, that's
fascinating.
He's going to do his own thing. And I don't know. If it works, it works. But he does everything like he does everything.
Yeah.
Some like to suffer in silence, man.
Insane.
Yeah. Anik and Florian podcast poll question: who wins the UFC bantamweight title fight at UFC 311? Umar Nurmagomedov, who's the -325 betting favorite, or Merab Dvalishvili, who is +260. Right now, dead heat. 50% of votes on each side. And we did one for Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan. And if you are curious, 73% of respondents do like Islam Makhachev. But Ray, when the sportsbook creates a betting line, they're trying to create two-way action, right? And I am always curious to see where this betting line may close relative to where it's at right now, to see if some people, relative to those poll results, right, if the action will dovetail in that direction and people start plucking down on Merab plus 260 or so. I mean, that is a huge number for a defending champion.
That's way higher than I thought it would be. Look, what the fans are saying. The fans are saying it's 50-50, and I go with that. I think that fight it should be a very small margin either way you're going.
Right.
You know
Merab as a stylist, right? We talk about the will. If I'm even allowed to bet on these fights, he's not a guy that I'm betting on or against because my goodness, right? I mean, all of a sudden, right? We talked about, right? Like the always bet on cardio t-shirts, ABC, right? Like when in doubt, pick the guy with the.
I love it, John. The ABC, baby.
Well, Merab, it's like, imagine they hit the stools for a round 4. Like, I do believe Umar deserves to be the betting favorite. I thought maybe minus 160, minus 180 skill for skill, but minus 325 against this dude who's won 11 in a row, who has no comp.
But against some really big names.
Killers.
Man. Right.
I
don't know. I'm hoping that the fact that they tried to kill him to get to the title will backfire, and that experience he's going to take into the octagon. He's got the momentum. He's got the confidence. He's faced big punches. He's faced really good guys. I hope that makes the difference. That would be my guess. You know what I mean? But that's a big number, and I think it should have been way smaller than that, man.
That's what about ding on your cell phone too? Do you any chance you can silent that pig for the rest of the Ray Longo minute today?
I shouldn't even take.
He's very popular.
Yeah, I don't think so. I didn't hear a goddamn thing. Wait a minute,
other things.
Wait, what are the odds on? What are the odds on the fight going the distance?
Maybe Cody can chase that for you. I'm hosting a live podcast right now. By the way, ANIKFLORIAN podcast live on a Monday. Thanks to everybody joining us live on the DraftKings YouTube channel. I would like to read a quote here from an elite human being and an elite mixed martial arts fighter and UFC Hall of Famer. His name, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Ray, did you see what happened to him on Frontier Airlines?
Wow, crazy.
All right, let me just read his statement, and then I'd like to get your
I did not see it. So I want to hear this.
So, first of all, this is the statement from Khabib Nurmagomedov. I guess I should set up what happened to my eyes just for Ken Flo and those who didn't see it. So, it looked like he was in an exit row in the window seat, and maybe a flight attendant racially profiling or whatever the fuck he or she was doing didn't like him in that seat, and I guess they asked him to move, and he decided to take himself off the aircraft as opposed to move. Here's the quote from Khabib, and I hope I'm getting the facts correct. First of all, I need to clarify that it was Fly Frontier and not Alaska Air. Lady who comes to me with questions was very rude from the very beginning, even though I speak very decent English. I would say beyond decent, and can understand everything and agreed to assist. She still insists on removing me from my seat. What was the base for that? Racial, national, or other one? I'm not sure. But after 2 minutes of conversation, she called security, and I was deplaned from this aircraft. After an hour and a half, I boarded another airline and left to my destination. I did my best to stay calm and respectful, as you can see on the video, but those crew members could do better next time and just be nice with clients, right? Makes me embarrassed to be an American when I see something like this. Hopefully this woman or man will be relieved of his or her duties. Ray Longo, what do you have?
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. I mean, if what we're hearing, and well, even he's saying it's just, I don't know, what do you want me to say? It's wrong, and I mean, we could go. There's two sides to every story. I'd love to hear a response from.
I have it.
Yeah, from Frontier.
Yeah, let me get this, Ken, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go
Frontier
for it.
Airlines.
Yeah.
They issued a statement saying they asked him 3 times, perhaps to assist. He ignored them, which is an FAA flag. They asked him to move to an upgraded seat. He refused. They are then required to deplane him, and they refunded him his money. Right. Kenny, excuse me. Go ahead.
Maybe they thought just by looking at him that he wasn't capable of lifting that door. You got to be capable of lifting that door. And they just didn't think he was that guy. That's unfortunate, man. That's too bad. And again, so according to Khabib, that other stuff never happened. He didn't refuse. He did respond and all that stuff, right? Because you have that thing, you got to make eye contact. You got to look him. You got to give him a verbal yes. That whole thing. Did Khabib say that all took place and they're full of poop?
Yeah, that's why I say this. I mean, do we just rush right to the racial profiling? Is that it?
Maybe I am rushing to Khabib Nurmagomedov's defense, and I'm glad that we were able to at least present the counter side from Frontier Airlines. But whatever video I saw, I didn't like the way that he was being treated. And
Right.
Jesse Ventura and others have come out and said they don't fly commercially because they are made to feel like a criminal every time they fly, whether it's being patted down or American flight attendants in general. These American airlines, I'm not saying AA, right? But these airlines out of the United States of America, when it comes to hospitality and general cordiality, don't even come close to the way you get treated on these international airlines. And sometimes it's embarrassing to be a fucking American when it comes to the way these people, TSA people, right, in LA and New York, treat me like, you know, a bag of dicks.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the job. I think customer service in general sucks. But yeah,
I'll tell you, look, I'm going to tell you something. I'll tell you a funny story. Who the hell was fighting? And we were going to Melbourne and we fly into Sydney. Yeah, you're up 20 hours at that point, right? Or whatever, you're flying 20 hours. And as I'm getting my bags to go, I think we had to probably redo security. And as I'm waiting for my stuff, there's a female agent there, a TSA agent. This is what I hear as I'm walking by. Mafia, mafia, mafia. What the? I turned to Sarah and go, you can't make this shit up, man.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny? Like, so
I'm saying mob.
Yeah. No, so is that fucking no, 100%. I laugh it off. I didn't give a I didn't give a shit, but that's kind of racial profiling. I just, I laughed and I kept walking. But it is funny when I get to I can't think, it was Benil Dariush's cousin. He was what a great guy. He had us at his gym the whole time. But I said, you guys got any mob influence? He goes, oh man, are you kidding me? But what he explained to me was almost like New York in the 80s, Kenny. So I'm walking around going, I think it's one little thing, like on the East Coast. You know what I mean? And he said, and when I talked to him, he said, 100% huge is what he told me. I don't know.
Wow.
So, but you get racial, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. No,
I just can't. Yeah. I mean, I'm fine. I'm not all that fired up, I guess, a little bit. But when I go to Atlanta,
it's okay for the Italian guy to get racially profiled. It's okay.
I was going to say that she should stay out of your business just because you're in the mob. It doesn't mean, you're doing.
Kenny, I don't think she was being. It wasn't a mean thing. I think she was being. I swear to God, I think she was being funny. I literally delirious when I'm going through there at that point. I just started laughing, but whatever. It is what it is. What are you going to do?
Well, and maybe I shouldn't make generalizations. Certainly, I have said on these airwaves before that when I go to Atlanta, the TSA agents make you feel like $1 million. And Atlanta, of course, is in the U.S. and Southern hospitality, I think, is a real thing. But like when I go on Delta, and we got to get back to the MMA, I notice a noticeable increase in just cordiality and congeniality. Just the Delta flight attendants are nicer, and I think it stems from them having a great CEO. So
I fly Delta all the time. I have no complaints. And,
there you go. There you go.
Let's end it like this. First, very unfortunate.
You're trying to get out of here 7 minutes early now.
No, very unfortunate. I agree with you. To be an American, it's embarrassing if that's what's going on. But it could be a lack of communication a little bit. They get weird with those doors. I've been there when they're talking to people. You know what I mean? And I've seen them move people out of there. That's not the first time.
Yeah.
They might have some little girl sitting there. You know what I mean? Like a younger lady who weighs 100 pounds. I think they get her right out of there. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Well, hey, I mean, if I work for Frontier Airlines and I listen to the Anik and Florian podcast, I'm going to send Ray Longo some flight vouchers for.
Well, first off, John, that's my second question to Khabib. Khabib, why are you flying Frontier Airlines? I mean, what is that?
All right, there you go.
Can we get him? Can we get him on a regular airline?
Breaking news: Khabib doesn't fly first class. Yeah,
John. Listen, man, Frontier, all those. I mean, I wouldn't get on those airlines if you paid me.
Right.
I mean, it's not. You see, remember when they used to have a reality show where people were up at the desk screaming at everybody? They're always canceling flights or something. So get the hell out of here, man.
Right.
So what do you? Yeah, maybe next time take Amtrak.
Right. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know if he was coming from Northern California or
I mean, I don't know. Frontier Airlines. Have you ever flown Frontier, Kenny?
I don't think I have.
Yeah,
John.
We certainly are not going to start now. No, and I would not be flying Spirit Airlines.
No,
either.
Yeah.
Okay. We have about 5 more minutes with Ray Longo now.
What a good time.
So we were sort of hoping that for 2025, you would come up with, Longo's large item, Longo's large lemon. You would bring something to the table, a topic. And when Cody reminded you of this privately, you were like, I got nothing. So he sent you 5 ideas. I thought they were all right. But it doesn't sound like you have anything this week. So I would rather table that and talk about Santiago Ponzinibbio unless you got something you're burning on.
No.
Okay.
I have nothing I'm burning on. I don't even know what the hell I'm supposed to be doing. But the Ponzinibbio fight was unbelievable.
The fight card was unbelievable. There's a lot to get into here.
Yeah.
Violence, man.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. Carlston Harris out of Guyana sort of trying to upend the post-fight interview. Like Santiago Ponzinibbio has lost some split decisions that he really deserved to win. Finally knocks a guy out. He gets no bonus. And Carlston Harris gets to come in and, talk about, that maybe the fight should have gone longer. Anyway, Santiago Ponzinibbio is one of my broadcast partners. He's an absolute warrior. At times his body has failed him. At times maybe the matchmakers have failed him. Just feel good for a good guy getting a big win, even if no bonus. Right.
Yeah. Listen, man, heart and determination. Man, what was he down twice? He was down once in each round, I think.
Yeah.
His ability to endure that type of shit and come back was phenomenal. I think it was a feel good moment. It's almost like a Rocky story, but on a lesser level, obviously. But really, really good to see, and it was crazy.
That's how he made his name on The Ultimate Fighter. I mean, he was like the comeback kid. Would do that repeatedly and did it again against Harris, man. And I think, John, you mentioning his health, I think is important because this was probably the first fight in a very long time where I actually saw him move really well. It seemed he wasn't dealing with anything. That was the best he's looked, I guess, physically, athletically in a very, very long time. And he got a great result. That dude is tough as nails, man.
Another guy with just sheer will to get the job done. What did you think about the Roman Kopylov-Chris Curtis fight, Ray? If people didn't see it, it ends with 1 second to go. The TKO, courtesy of that Kopylov head kick, a lot being made of the Mark Smith stoppage there. And I think, quite frankly, for me, not nearly enough being made of Roman Kopylov. Can we celebrate the win and not just lean into the controversy?
Yeah. Look, but Curtis is a good dude. You could tell by him.
So what? We don't know Roman's a good dude because he doesn't speak English?
Well, no, Roman's a good dude because he kicked him in the balls, poked him in the eyes, but he didn't want to hit him after he knocked him down. So he's cool, that guy. I mean, he made the decision after he kicked him in the nuts and gouged his eyes out. He was going to be no, I don't want to hit the guy. He's got a family. He's got a family, Kenny. So it's all good. No, it's all good. Kenny, it's all good. What are we talking about? Are you fucking kidding me? What do you want to make? What do you want to? You want to give the guy a compliment? The dirty fight? What are we talking about?
Well, I appreciate the comedy, but what did you think of the fight and the stoppage then, I guess I would say?
Okay, the fight was unbelievable. The stoppage, if we just break it down to the stoppage, look, I think he was on his way to losing that fight. So the ref could have saved him from another 1 or 2 big shots, but Kopylov 100% did the wrong thing by walking away. He should have just finished the fight, and then we don't have a controversy. And all the the other stuff about he's got a family and stuff. Yeah, that's the whole point. He wants to, he wants to go out the right way, or it's going to leave some open-ended stuff in his mind. But what great fight, stoppage. I don't. At that point, only because, who was ahead on the scorecards? Do we know that?
It was tied. Roman Kopylov was going to win the 3rd round.
Right. So, I think that has to go into it a little bit. At the end of the day, he probably saved him 1 or 2 shots that could have had a bigger effect on his future. So, he's tough as nails. That guy doesn't want to go out like that. So, your heart has to go out to him. He wants to finish the fight. But at the end of the day, it might not have been that bad. But,
Ken?
Yeah, listen, I think that, for Kopylov, whether he was going to, move forward to finish that fight or not, I think really wouldn't have mattered because Mark Smith at that point was committed to stop that fight. I don't even know if he was looking at Kopylov. He just jumped in there and just kind of waved it off. And for Curtis, Chris wasn't getting up from that shot. He just kind of like crumpled to the ground, made no attempt of even getting up.
Right.
Made no attempt of getting up. And I'm like, for me, people are like, well, I think that the referee shouldn't have stopped it because there was only 1 second left. It's like, yeah, Gaethje had 1 second left in that fight against Holloway too. I feel better about it because it's a decision as opposed to a knockout. Like, okay, I kind of get that as a fighter, but Mark Smith has no idea at that point. His concern is with the fighter and if they're safe, or if he feels that they're not going to be safe. That's why he's stopping the fight. He's not thinking about the fighter's record or looking at the clock instead of looking at what's transpiring in front of him. His concern are the fighters themselves, not the time, not the record, not anything else. So I don't know. I think people need to think about like what's actually happening in real time and what the concern for the referee is, what the job of the referee is.
Right. No, if you're the referee, you 100% did the right thing. If you thought you were going to save that guy, you're there to protect the fighter. So he did the right thing. And it's the type of knockout, John, where his legs went, but his brain was still functioning. So I agree with Kenny. I don't think he could have gotten up or he would have been wobbling around, which would have opened him up to another 1 or 2 big shots, but it's the type of thing that he went down, but his brain 100% was working. Like he could, it's almost like when Moraes hit Merab, his legs buckled like the same way, but he was totally coherent.
I'll say this. It was the second time he was rocked in the fight. Like he was rocked pretty bad. He didn't go down, but also I would argue that if your brain isn't communicating with your body, then there is something wrong with your brain.
Well, that's when when you're doing the dance like that, that's what's happening. You know what I mean? When you get hit, like on the butt, you're just out. You go down and it's out. This was, holy shit, where are my legs? You know what I mean? Like, why are my legs not working? But so it's a little tricky, I guess, that way. But I think at the end of the day, like Kenny said, look, Mark Smith's job is to protect the fighter, and I think that's 100% what he did. He wasn't looking to have a controversy, or he wasn't looking to, give Kopylov an advantage. He felt by what he looked at the way that guy went down that he had to step in and save him, and that's it. That's the end of the story. I got 100% no problem to that. On the flip side, my heart goes out to Curtis because we know he's a warrior, and we know he wants to keep going no matter what. So. It kind of sucks, but Mark Smith did the right thing for sure.
I understand there were fouls in the fight, but I just don't like the under celebration of TKO wins like this. And even when the guy gets his post-fight interview, the lead in is controversy. And as far as I'm concerned, Chris Curtis got absolutely rocked more than once in that third round. My issue in terms of the officiating is the corrective behavior I see from Mark Smith later in the evening when I thought Carlston Harris could have been effectively removed from his fighting duties and Santiago Ponzinibbio needs to nearly kill a man. So that's what I don't like is the Keith Peterson-esque referee pivot to change the way you are refereeing based upon maybe the fan base thinking that you prematurely stopped a fight earlier in the night. But if there were 30 seconds to go in the fight, Kenny and Ray, then, Kopylov maybe follows up and gives Chris Curtis, further concussive damage. So Curtis was on the wrong end of a lot of damaging shots with total respect. We got to let you go, Ray. I know you got your spray tan coming up here, 12:15 or not.
No, really. I mean, what is this? Can somebody help me out with the camera? I know I look like a fucking ghost, man.
So, I mean, I was out in the sun a little bit yesterday. I have a really nice Sony camera that I think maybe masks some of my deficiencies. Kenfo looks like he is a little sun splashed. You look like you're in New York.
No, Kenny did something with the camera. Like his face is kind of red. Looks like what are you sitting in front of a red light? What are you doing?
Do you think the makeup I use has anything to do with
maybe that's I need a makeup lady over here.
Hey,
I do look red. I do, yeah.
Hey, Ray, we hope you have an amazing few days, and we will see you Thursday or Friday in Inglewood.
And on a side note going out, my heart goes out to everybody in California. Those pictures and what I'm seeing is absolutely devastating, and I'm sure you guys have the same sentiment, but wow, that is scary what happened.
It looks like Armageddon. It looks like a
bomb. It's scary, and it goes to show you, like Mother Nature, man. We could get wiped out in a heartbeat, man. You could lose a state. I think easy.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah,
I don't
no, it
know.
is. There's
All
no
right,
doubt.
man. I'll see you
Thank
over.
you,
I'll
Ray.
see you in Cali, man. I'll
All right,
talk to you.
brother.
Take it easy,
There he
Kenny.
is.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
safe travels.
Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. And we are going to rifle it right back out to the guest line because now joining us, good man here, folks, Sportsnet's own mixed martial arts journalist, reporter, broadcaster, AB, Aaron Bronsteter. On X, it's the name Aaron Bronsteter. Good to see you, my man. You got the nice jacket on and everything else. You're looking good. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Do I need a spray tan? I mean, I think I'm doing okay. I was just in Florida like last week, so I think I've got the residual tan that's still going on.
Your setup is phenomenal. So how we're getting the jacket treatment and everything else. What do you wear like when you're out and about with your kids? I dress like a certifiable bum.
I was actually surprised because the dude recognized me. I was out like in downtown Toronto. It was like shortly after Christmas, and I have a full beard. I'm wearing like like a jacket and like almost like a cab driver hat. And the guy's like, "Hey," and I was just surprised they recognized me because when I'm out and about, I'm just like t-shirt,
Right,
or like
right.
regular jacket. Like I don't dress like this for anybody, just for you guys, and
There we go.
whenever I'm on camera.
Well, we
Like,
appreciate that.
typically, I'm kind of dressed like a schlub. Like if somebody sees me at the airport today, I'll be wearing like a long sleeve t-shirt and just like cargo pants.
Well, just imagine the extent to which you would get recognized if anyone from your nation could actually fight.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
kidding.
absolutely.
I'm just
right?
kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just having fun. But part of what I wanted to talk to you about today, and hopefully Eamon's a hobby and the
Let
rest
Mike
can
Malott
take
know. He's
that.
going to be doing. He's going to be my analyst for this week when we're in Los Angeles. So I'll make sure that you send us your regards.
No, I mean, I think a lot of the fan base wonders why maybe one of these fighters hasn't just come up to me and knocked me out over the years. I have fun on the Anik and Florian podcast, but part of what I did want to talk to you about today, and we do talk to you about this every now and again, is which fighter is going to carry the torch for Canada? Which fighter can break through and bring it back to a place of prominence, right? Because I have said repeatedly that the best MMA crowds per capita are in Canada. And for me and Kenny, our fondest memories of covering mixed martial arts and attending live events have been there. But at least right now, when we look at, say, Australia, New Zealand as a market and all the talented contenders, we need someone to step up. I mean, is Amin Zahabi maybe the best hopeful as far as contenders go right now in Canada?
John, this can't be the reason why you had me on. I mean, listen, there's no relevance right now. We didn't have a Canadian fight on the weekend. We're going to LA this week. Like, I mean, yeah, Eamon's doing great. He's ranked. I think he's going to fight somebody, maybe like a Chito Vera type fighter later this year and really show what he can do. I think Mike Malott, bumping the road, but I think he's on the comeback trail. My concern right now is like, I don't see that one hot prospect just yet that's worked their way up to the UFC that we can really look at as a guy in their 20s or woman in their 20s that's somebody that we can really get behind. That just doesn't exist right now. Jasmine Jasdovic is late to the game. She's 34, 35 years old. Mike is still, I think, 32, 33. But, I call regional MMA in Canada, and we're still waiting for that kind of ascendant fighter. Like I thought Mo Ado, who was on the Contender Series, he's very, very green because he just started training 3 or 4 years ago, and he's done some great things here on the regional scene, but he fell short against Jonathan Mikhailov, who's fighting in Australia next month. But, I think that right now we just don't have that fighter that we can really hang our hat on just yet. I think it'll come, but it just sometimes a fighter has to hit lightning in a bottle. And we also, this isn't a very populous country. Like we don't have a lot of fighters. And, George St. Pierre is a top 3 consensus fighter of all time, right? So these are pretty big shoes to fill.
No, there's no doubt about it. And I remember just back in the day how many Canadian fighters I was getting excited about, whether it was Patrick Cote or Olivier Aubin-Mercier or whomever it was. And you can blame my twin brother, Jason Anik, for me going down this line today. But we do like to put some pre-thought into these conversations. Yeah, I could ask you about the Cesar Almeida knockout to be sure. But Firas Zahabi is probably the guy that I should have on and ask that question to, Kenny, because Kenny and I believe he is maybe the best coach in all of mixed martial arts. And certainly he can't create more people and mixed martial arts athletes, but it would just seem to me that there will come a time, whether it's 5 or 10 years down the line, where you are going to have bona fide Canadian contenders and the Bell Center is going to be fucking lit again. That's all. Now shut up.
I think that's true, but I think also, the shadow of George St. Pierre looms very large over these Canadian athletes because we don't have that many fighters from Canada in the UFC. So when they do get there, always the logical question is, are you going to be the next GSP? And those are just really, really big shoes to fill.
Yeah, Aaron. So obviously another big pay-per-view card on Saturday night. Is there a fight that you're looking forward to that people might be sleeping on?
Well, I think Peyton Talbot against Raoni Barcelos is an interesting one because this is a guy that I think has the potential to be top 10 by the end of the year in Peyton Talbot. And he's just been absolutely electric since coming to the UFC and has really looked untouchable. Like the way that he's beating guys has been very, very impressive. And that's one that I'm very excited for. And I also think we're not seeing enough about Yuri Prochazka and Jamal Hill. Like that's a fight that, would have been the main event of like an international fight week like a year or two ago because they were both at the very top of that division, a very exciting division. And now it's third from the top and 3-round fight. I think that's a really, really cool fight.
Both of those guys coming off of losses against Pereira. What are you expecting from those guys?
Well, Yuri actually, I think Yuri's coming off the win. Was that fight?
That's right.
Was the Rakic win more recently? I can't even remember.
No, he came back and fought Pereira a second time after the Rakic win.
That was after the Rakic fight. Okay, right, because they needed the Connor fill-in for 303. Okay, right. Yeah. So, it's very interesting, and I think that they're both kind of at a crossroads in their career right now, coming off those Alex Pereira losses. I look at that matchup though, and I can't help but I was thinking about it actually this morning. I think that the things that Jamal Hill does exceptionally well are the weaknesses in the game of Yuri Prochazka. Like I think that from a matchup standpoint, this is going to be a really tough fight for Yuri. Whereas I think that as long as Jamal Hill stays disciplined and stays within his game, I think he'll have a big advantage in this fight. And I'm eager to see if that'll play out. But, with Yuri, he's somehow able to get people into these kind of firefights where if he can bring the chaos to them, that's where he can thrive. Jamal Hill's actually very good at avoiding that sort of chaos in his fights. Very good with sticking to what he's great at, which I think is his boxing, his footwork, his precision. And those are the kind of things that Yuri's had trouble with in the past. Yep. So what I'm curious about is Yuri has said he wants to go back to the drawing board. He wants to try new things. He's even thinking of a move to 185 pounds. Right. What has he done in this off time to prepare him for a guy like Jamal Hill, who just does so many, I don't want to say he does so many things well, but the things that he does well, he does really, really well. Like he's, a lot of people hate on Jamal Hill, but people are rarely hating on Jamal Hill because of how he fights. Nobody's ever like, oh, this guy sucks. They're just like, well, I don't like the way that he's reacted to these things, outside of the cage. Nobody ever has real criticisms for how he fights. He's an incredible fighter. So I'm just very interested to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yuri Prochazka starts talking about middleweight, and the next thing you know, they offer him this massive light heavyweight fight that I would think would be too hard to deny. And here we are, the great Aaron Bronsteter with us live here on the Anik and Florian podcast. So I talked off the top of the show about this 6-week respite between pay-per-views. Now, since I took over 2017 or whenever it was, I can't ever remember having this type of gap. I know there was a UFC fight night on December 14th. We had one last weekend, but for you, I know you're talking a little bit about screen time and getting away from the devices a little bit, but has this been a little bit of a welcome break / off season? Like, have you felt a little bit of a reset or no?
Yeah, for sure. I think that like anytime there's 3 weeks in a row with no UFC event, and that seems to be the direction they're going in now in the winter time. Like after they usually don't do anything Christmas week, and the last week of the year is the weekend before that, and then they don't come back until like the first or second weekend in January, and it is a good respite. And thankfully this time around, there wasn't any news that happened during the break, really. Like it was a very quiet time. So that was nice. And it allows you to kind of really think about the year ahead and how you can change things and what you want to do differently in terms of your approach to both covering the sport and your approach to life.
So there are some reports that the UFC is seeking north of $1 billion a year for its live events and a new television contract. And I'm not going to opine on that for obvious reasons. But in the context of the end of year situation, I think a lot of it has to do with American football and the current television partner domestically, ESPN. And I think in a climate in which the content was spread out, potentially on Netflix, you are very much looking at a return to a big year-end celebration and things that maybe will interrupt people's holiday celebrations. And I think I'm kind of for it. I guess it's a long-winded way of saying, like, I am jonesing to get away from South Florida, to a lesser extent away from my children, and get back to work, way too long for me. Aaron Bronsteter, a few more things I'd like to get to with you. So we talked about the Roman Kopylov, Chris Curtis situation, and I think there were some dissenting opinions on this show as to the end of that fight. I talked a little bit, I don't know if you heard me, about Mark Smith maybe later in the night allowing a fight to go longer, perhaps because of this decision earlier in the night. Anything for us on the end of that fight and how you think it was handled, either by referee, by Nick Sick and Curtis after the fact? Anything for us on that, if you'd be so kind?
I think everybody handled it the way that they should have in that moment. And the thing that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to officiating is, like, we can see on TV that there's a second left, but what we can't see is the eyes of the fighter.
Right.
Like, Mark Smith is right there.
Right.
He can see exactly what the fighter looks like if they have their wits about him. And he's refereed enough fights to know whether or not he thinks a fighter is fit to continue. Now, the thing that makes this so tricky is that Kopylov kind of walked off, right? At that point in time, I think Kopylov knows that there's very little time left in the fight, because you hear the claps of 10 seconds remaining. I think the referee knows that there's less than 10 seconds remaining. But I still think that the referee they have to officiate the fight the same way they would in the last second of the fight, the same way that they would at 3 minutes and 14 seconds of the second round. Like that's their job.
Right.
So I can't fault Mark Smith for stopping the fight. And like you mentioned, I mean, it's kind of a trivial thing to talk about anyways, because Kopylov was going to win that fight on the scorecards if he didn't stop the fight. Like, I think that's a pretty obvious foregone conclusion looking at the scorecards after the fact. One of the things I tweeted right afterwards was like, Chris Curtis is really going to beat himself up about this if he was up going into that third round, but that wasn't the case.
Right.
Once the public scorecard came out and it was even going to the third, it's fairly easy to conclude that Kopylov would have won the fight by unanimous decision regardless. So I think that we're making a little bit too much of it. Now, on the flip side, you mentioned Carlston Harris and Ponzinibbio when you were talking to Coach, and that's a stoppage that I didn't really like, because I thought it was stopped at the wrong time. Like, I thought that Kerry Hatley stepped in when you see Carlston Harris
that was
squared
Hatley
up.
and not Mark Smith.
That was Kerry Hatley. Yeah. So
I really apologize then. I thought for sure, man, I must have been on one. Jeez. Anyway, go ahead.
That was an exciting night of fight. So I understand that the adrenaline was kicked in at that point in time. But I think that you had Carlston Harris kind of squared up and he's throwing a punch. He actually lands a punch when Hatley stops the fight. Like, I think there are lots of different moments where Hatley could have stopped the fight where he was really compromised. But then once you see the fighter's kind of back, he's squared up, he's throwing punches, then that's the wrong time to stop the fight, in my opinion. So
I agree.
You don't want to see Carlston Harris take more damage, but at the same time, you saw what happened earlier in the night with Abdul Razak Al Hassan and Cesar Almeida, letting that fight continue until that's completed. Carlston Harris had rocked Ponzinibbio and knocked him down several times in that fight. So when you see that Carlston Harris is still fighting back, I think, especially when he's probably up on the cards, or at least potentially up on the cards. I can't remember how those scorecards played out.
I think it was two. Carlson was up two rounds, and then obviously losing that third round. And I agree. I think there were moments where you could have stopped that fight, but that was the time where he was actually back in it, had his wits, and was actually landing punches. So it was kind of an odd stoppage there from Hatley.
Right. That was the stoppage that I didn't like. The Chris Curtis stoppage, I get a lot more. Yeah. And I also think that we can see that Carlston Harris is fighting back, whereas with Chris Curtis, we can't really see his eyes in that moment because the camera's not going to zoom in on the guy's pupils. That's what the referee's job is. And I think that's a thing that a lot of people don't think about when referees stop fights, where people think that it's a controversial stoppage, is that they can see little nuances that we just are not looking for in that moment.
All right, time permitting, I'll have some more fight stuff with you on the back end, but I have some would you rather questions for Aaron Bronsteter today. Ray Longo did not like these questions. Would you rather give up all drinks except water, or give up eating anything that was cooked in an oven?
I mean, I would have to give up coffee, which would be really hard for me. No, you know what? I would give up the oven. Like, I think I could live off coffee and eggs all day. Like, I think
got an air fryer too, right?
Well, an air fryer is an oven. Are we not counting the air fryer?
Yeah, I guess
an air fryer is an oven.
Yeah.
So
Mark Smith, by the way,
you can still. Is a barbecue an oven? Like, what are we getting into here? Are we talking a stove? Like, if we're talking stove, that's an easy one. But if we're talking like barbecues and air fryers, anything that you're putting something in and closing the door, it's a little trickier. That said, you can still pan fry a steak on like a nice cast iron. It'll come out good.
That's how I cook my steak.
You absolutely buried Mark Smith on this podcast, dude. Just buried him,
dude. Well, you could have corrected me live if you thought that it was Kerry Hatley, but no,
I didn't know. I actually didn't know
Mark
you were
Smith's
talking
not
about
a guy who I would think historically would. Right, he doesn't care. He's there for the fighters. He's not worried about public opinion. So I do apologize for that. So yes, Kerry Hatley, I certainly thought there were opportunities where he could have stopped that fight. and I was behind the Chris Curtis stoppage, to be sure. I guess sometimes I just feel like nobody's talking about Roman Kopylov today. And if he was an American fighter who spoke English, he'd be like, hey, guys, like, I was the one who landed the fucking head kick. Anyway, Aaron Bronsteter, would you rather only be able to wash your hair, and I know you're a vain guy, twice a year, or only be able to check your phone once a day?
I would go with it. Like, so when you say wash your hair, are you talking full shampoo or are you talking like getting your hair wet, period?
Shampoo.
Yeah, I could go without that. You're not even supposed to shampoo your hair that often.
Twice a year, bro. Well,
Yeah.
you're in a, so
That's
you
the washing
can't
it.
afford. You can't afford journalistically to only check your phone once a day, but you have posted on social media recently that you are going to great lengths to lessen your screen time, so much so that my brother tells me that you are like grayscaling your fucking phone to get rid of all the color on it.
Yeah. Yeah. My phone's grayscale like 90% of the time now. I'll turn on color if I'm going to play Brawl Stars. I play Brawl Stars with my kid. I'll put the color on if I'm going to play Brawl Stars or if there's like a video I really, really want to watch.
Yeah.
But otherwise just we're Game Boy mode.
Wow.
You're amazing. All right, 2 more, and then we'll get you out of here. And sorry for being 5 minutes late today. Would you rather be so afraid of heights that you can't go to the second floor of a building, or be so afraid of the sun that you can only leave the house on rainy days?
Oh, I'm already afraid of heights, so this is an easy one for me. I'm like I'm not like third floor afraid of heights, but yeah, like I live with that. So I mean, if you put a little bit more anxiety in my life, it's not that going to be that big of a deal. But I'm not going to be afraid of the sun. Like let me go outside and bask, even though I'm in Canada and we don't get that much of it anyways. But you know.
All right, last would you rather? Would you rather never eat your favorite food for the rest of your life, or only eat your favorite food?
I'm going to say never. I think that like balance in life is really important and like moderation is really important. Like if I just sat there eating steaks all day, like I'd be shitting bricks. Like, you know, I know people subscribe to this carnivore diet thing. It's the kind of the new fad diet or whatever it is. To me, the best diet is one that nobody talks about. It's just called balance. Yeah,
moderation and balance.
And you have a little water and you have, you know, a little bit of everything. So I would just say, I wouldn't have my favorite food again.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn because if someone told me I can't eat Chinese food for the rest of my life, I'd be like, you know what? I'll just have it every day. And that's how we'll solve that problem. All right, final question for Aaron Bronsteter. Islam Makhachev is a bigger betting favorite than Umar Nurmagomedov this weekend. But it seems to me when I talk to people, forgetting our Anik and Florian podcast poll, that some people maybe think that Arman Tsarukyan is more of a live underdog than Merab Dvalishvili. So can I ask you journalistically, in which betting favorite are you more confident this weekend, Islam Makhachev or Umar Nurmagomedov?
I'm more confident in Islam because I think that Islam's grappling, I believe, is better than Tsarukyan's. I believe that his boxing is better than Tsarukyan's. And I also think that the experience of being in all of these different championship fights and fighting top-level competition makes him better equipped to fight a guy like Tsarukyan than Umar, who has that great win over Sandhagen. And I think that Umar is definitely a worthy favorite. But when you look at guys like Petr Yan, who have been a big favorite against Merab Dvalishvili, and how Dvalishvili just ran through him, I'd be a lot more comfortable with Islam as a big favorite than Umar for sure.
Will we see you in Los Angeles?
You will. I'm leaving today. In about 4 hours' time, I'll be boarding an airplane.
We appreciate you squeezing us in. On X, you can find this man at Aaron Bronsteter. And salutations, my man. Look forward to shaking your hand in a few days. We appreciate your time as always.
Absolutely. Only a few more sleeps, as you would say, until we all get down with UFC 311. And that is a reference to Band 311 and their hit single Down from the year 1998, which it might not actually be from that year, but I just figured it was probably around that time.
That's like all we listened to in college, brother. You're opening my mind for some of my copy to write this weekend. Thank you very much, brother.
You got to trust your instincts, John. Trust your instincts. Okay, have a great day. We'll see you guys later this week.
Have a good trip, man.
There he is, the great Aaron Bronsteter, joining us from north of the border. I was just trying to have a little fun with Canada off the top. I would like to formally apologize to Mark Smith for wrongly suggesting that you were Kerry Hatley in the co-main event. I was watching on my phone. I got the NFL on the TV. I don't know what to tell you.
Do to you, dude? I mean, come on.
I always introduce him as the classy veteran Mark Smith. He's one of my favorites.
No, he is. He's an awesome ref. Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for today. Rest assured, we have a lot more coming up on UFC 311 coming up on Wednesday. Ken Flo and Brian Petrie will have 7 predictions for you, and also they will give you $3,000 worth of wagers in our Place Your Bet segment. Also, don't forget, go to @ANIKFLORIANPOD on either Instagram or X. You can fill out the Google form to be considered to go head-to-head this year, live on the air against Ken Flo and Petrie. And perhaps the next great handicapper on the Anik and Florian podcast will come out of those submissions. Thank you to our guests, Ray Longo and Aaron Bronsteter. Thanks to our business manager, Jason Anik, our executive producer, Cody Merrow. And thanks to the great Ken Flo, always showing up with the analytics. We will talk to you guys in about 48 hours. Until then, have a great day and a better evening. Thanks for watching live. Yo fucking later.
I love this shit.